to be in the program, including the visit from the President of the United States to our fine city. But before I kind of cover that as it relates to the state of the city, some information that didn't quite make the media. It was well reported that his visit to Elyria went without incident, that it was a fantastic event for him to come in this tour around the Midwest and to a fine city like Elyria. But it almost didn't start out that way, I might add. We had lunch at Smitty's, and many of you know Smitty's establishment, and many of you also know Steve Frank, and he can be ornery at times. And my responsibility getting started was to place the order. And of course, Steve wants to push Smitty burgers, and if you know Smitty burgers, they can be a little messy with all the Smitty sauce. And also, we're ready to order the hamburger, and Steve says to the president, "Do you like mayonnaise?" And the president says, "Well, I'd like mustard, if you don't mind." "Well, do you like mayonnaise?" Steve says. To which I interrupted, and I know Steve because I'm figuring there's going to be an insulting opportunity taking place between Steve and the President of the United States, and lunch is going to be over with, and I'm not going to have an opportunity to meet with the President. So I told Steve, give him the man the mustard. He got mustard. It was without any incident, but that could have been the end of the trip. He could have been back to Air Force One. Well, we're going to start with the state of the city, and as the custom in the last couple of years, there would be no state of the city report if it didn't feature discussion about our fire department. This past year is no exception. Some of the highlights within our fire department this past year, we took the minimum staffing. In years prior, for a number of years, it was 17 minimum staffing, meant being we'd schedule X number of firefighters, and if the number went below 17, we would call in those on overtime to fill that spot. We lowered that to 14 a couple years ago, and this past year, due to, of course, budget constraints, we removed that altogether. And we typically have in the neighborhood of 10, 11, sometimes 8 or 9, but usually in the 10 or 11 that are at work on a given day. So we reduced the minimum staffing this year. One of the big events, and they did a wonderful job since February of last year, recuperating, and that was the college, the tunnels at the college. That was a year ago this next week. Quite a bit of damage, and it was one of those opportunities where fire departments throughout the region work cooperatively. There are 8 departments and dozens of firefighters from the area that participated on that. Again, through budget cuts, we ended up laying off 17 firefighters. We recalled one of them here recently. 7 firefighters left through retirement, so we had a net reduction from 75 to 52 firefighters this present year. We ushered in the new leadership into the fire department. And is with us here today, Chief Richard Benton. Chief joined us as the fire chief here earlier this last year, and look forward to a bright career as our fire chief. A couple of apparatus arrived this last year, an engine that's at Station 3, which is on Abbey Road, and a ladder truck, a very large tower vehicle apparatus. We also this last year, we reduced the officer complement to be more reflective of the overall employment of the department. So 7 captains to 6, 15 lieutenants to 7. Additionally, within the department, one of the key areas was the management study, which was greatly talked about and printed in the newspaper, etc. Among the findings and recommendations were to consolidate and move dispatch to either County 911 or a police department, and the choice was to go with County 911. And I might say that it's gone almost flawlessly. Chief Benton and others within the department have worked very closely with the County 911 staff, and they've done a marvelous job of doing the dispatch for us, for our fire department. What that amounted to, or allowed for, is one of our firefighters would be on staff doing the dispatch at one of the stations. Now that frees up that position, so that person now can be on fire apparatus to provide fire protection service. Another item that was among the findings in the audit was to permanently close Station 2, which was done this past year, to consolidate operations into Station 1. Yet to be done, but part of the recommendations was to relocate that Station 1, which is in the downtown area here on Cedar Street, to relocate it to an area in the southeast quadrant of the city, approximately at University and Prospect Street. Based on budget constraints, that may be a time off before that may happen. Among their recommendations, and this was assuming relatively stable finances, knowing that finances are generally in a challenged way for cities, but relatively stable, as well as recommendations in the collective bargaining agreement to be followed. They recommended that 13 minimum staffing would be appropriate for the city out of the 3 fire stations. And to accomplish that, it would require 51 firefighters in the department to be able to maintain that 13, again, assuming certain adjustments to the collective bargaining agreement. There's approximately 5 administrative staff. That would be the chief and the Fire Prevention Bureau, a training officer, and our fire marshal, those individuals. That would be in addition to the fire suppression staff, for a total of 56. Now, with all the reductions we've had, we're at 52 compared to what their recommendation was at 56. So we're not far off from where that recommendation was. A big footnote to that, is the collective bargaining agreement, adjustments to reflect that. In our police department, and Chief Mike Metters, his last official day with the city of Elyria is February 19th. That will conclude his 12 years as chief of the Elyria Fire Department. He started his career 34 years ago and became not only an exceptional chief for our city, but a leader in our community. He was well engaged here in the Rotary Club and many organizations throughout the city. So he will be missed, but he's has a great deal of well-trained staff members that he brought along with him, and one of them who is here, our acting chief, is one of the candidates to perhaps be the next chief. And I can't say any more than that because official things have not taken place here yet. But the chief will be done on the 19th, and we'll soon after that make official our permanent chief after that. Police officer staff, there were reductions this past year, largely through attrition. We went from 88 to 85. We had a couple retirements, as well as one officer left our department for another department. Civilian support staff, again, to help meet the overall budget challenges, we reduced civilian staff from 23 to 17. That was largely in records and operations like that. The city jail was closed. We've kind of been transitioning over the last couple of years to save on budget expenses of the department. There's opportunities to cite people. We can cite infractions on city violations versus state violations, and when we do so on state violations, they are the responsibility of the county jail system and our fine county commissioners and their budget. As challenged as it is, we've had to make adjustments along the way. So we've been doing that over the last couple of years, and it ultimately led to the closure of the jail. So where it has saved the city, considerable money, and approximately $1 million we expect to be saved during the course of this year, it clearly puts a greater strain on the county's resources and their budget. So when you hear them talk in future presentations about their financial challenges, know that to help relieve our burden, they took on extra burden. So hopefully they'll get some relief here before long. Crossing guards, we have had since the 1960s a 50-50 partnership essentially with the Elyria City Schools, and we withdrew from that partnership at the end of last school year and put that burden on the Elyria school system. They made some adjustments. It didn't cost them, I believe, a little bit more than their partnership called for while we were together. But now that it's separate, the Elyria schools are providing that service, and I think they've maintained most of the crossing locations, few less, but with the school building closing, they've been able to maintain proper service there. So the crossing guards are on the front of the schools. So I'll make that part of the pitch when we talk about schools needing additional funds for their operations. This is one more reason they need that support. Route 57, again, this was one of the highlights of the discussion over the course of this last year. Certainly we recognize it to be a nice smooth road this year, but there were other issues as far as the financing of the project, and in particular the landscaping, the millions of dollars of rose bushes that were alluded to being out on the project. But this is a quick rundown. The construction project was nearly $21 million. It was quite expensive. It was a combined cost of a new city hall and a new municipal court, to put it in perspective. The city's share of that, and this is where there was a great deal of work and support from other entities, be it the federal sources as well as the state. But our share, while it was only 8.3%, which is a major achievement for our city, still was $1.7 million, but 8.3%. Normally, projects like that would require 20% local share. So we were fortunate to keep that down to that 8.3%. The preliminary engineering, that's to get the whole project started. There are no matching funds, no resources available for that. So that was entirely a city expense, not to be reimbursed or matched in any way. But the landscaping piece that certainly got a lot of attention, the entire landscaping budget, all the trees and all the plantings, all the landscaping treatments was $505,000. Our share was also that 8.3%. So for all that landscaping, our share was $42,000. Now, the entire project, our local share, both the construction, the $1.7 million, and the engineering, the $1.1 million, we are borrowing that from a special state loan program. And that loan program is a low interest rate of approximately 3%. It's paid over a 10-year period, and the payment doesn't even start until about a year from now. So when there's been questions about, well, we could have used money on 57 toward other things, understand two things. One, we've not spent any money of the city's funds on that project to date. And when we do, it'll be a year from now. And when we do make those payments, they will come out of other roadway funds. So while they may be at the expense of other road projects in the city, they will not be at the expense of other services like police and fire and other services of the city. So when you break it down for the landscaping, going back to that before we go on to the next topic, our share of all that landscaping, $505,000 worth, is just about $5,000 per year that will cost us. Now, soon it's a referral to City Council, and this will happen probably in the next couple of months. But working with the veterans organizations, particularly the VFW, we will be renaming Route 57 to Veterans Memorial Parkway. So that will take place, and we'll probably have some special ceremony in the spring, early summer, to so recognize it. That'll be a nice way to recognize our veterans. Major grants, this is one of the things we've given a great deal of attention to the entire 10 years I've been in office, is looking after every grant that we can possibly acquire. The Neighborhood Stabilization Program we talked about last year, in terms of we were recognized to be awarded those funds. The funds are now starting to be expended. 42 properties have been acquired, 18 so far of the 50 planned for demolition, so we're acquiring about 50, 18 of which we've already acquired that we will be demolishing. 16 homes, properties we will be acquiring and rehabilitating them. And then there are approximately 8 lots that we've purchased to hold for redevelopment purposes, either possibly to go with our park system or to find, when the market rebounds, to find builders that would be able to build on those lots. Program that we will start receiving funds, in fact, we just did start receiving the funds, an Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant, $535,000. This is associated with the stimulus funds that are coming out of Washington. And that we are going to use about half of the funds, I believe, on programmable thermostats for residents in the community. It was viewed that that's for the money spent, creates a great deal of savings in individuals' homes. So we'll be doing several thousand or more of those on a first-come, first-served basis. Other funds will be used for improvements to furnaces, windows, and things like that based on a needs basis. So those funds are starting very soon. American Recovery, well, I might add also, we're changing out some of the traffic signals to an LED light fixture, and that will save considerable funds over the years in terms of how much we pay for the electricity for our traffic signals. Additional grants, about $2 million for both the combination of East River Street and Gateway Boulevard. Those projects will begin here in the next couple of months or so, and will be completed by the end of this year. We received 2 state grants. One's the Ohio Site Improvement Fund, $564,000 for the former Tappan plant. And that's to do cleanup projects as well as railroad spur improvements. There was another grant from the Clean Ohio Revitalization Fund, about $1.9 million. And that will pretty much conclude our opportunities to rehabilitate the whole Tappan plant area for its reuse. It's about 15 acres that the city owns, and we hope to be able to market that for redevelopment. We have a tenant, A&D Technologies, a company that makes conduit for the fiber technology industry in the country. So we hope they will stay and perhaps expand into that space. And really an exciting grant that was awarded through the Department of Energy was for the lithium-ion car battery program that the BASF, and I put, a lot of you would know it otherwise, is the Engelhard and former Harshaw Chemical Facility. People said, where's this BASF? Are they coming to town? Well, they were already here, but they're planning a $45 million expansion to the facility. So it's a wonderful opportunity for our community and those that work at BASF and the related companies that will support their effort. As far as major capital investments, these are some major projects, a handful of them around the city. EMH Regional Medical Center, they began in this past year, completed a significant addition to the physician's portal building, a lot of technology, part of their addition to the hospital. The community college, it seems every year they have major projects going, and this past year and currently is no exception. They've made improvements to the Ewing Field House, the administrative and student support facilities of the College Center building, major renovation and expansion of that facility that is ongoing. That'll provide improved administrative opportunities and student support activities for the college. Elyria High School, I'm sure Mr. Rigdale will be doing a program soon if he hasn't already. But we're all very excited and anxiously looking forward to the high school's major completion. It won't be totally complete, but mostly complete here this fall. We're still on schedule, right? It's been made everybody nervous. I know the superintendent in particular, waiting for everything to get in close, but they keep telling that they're on schedule. So that should open for the beginning of the school year. And that'll be very exciting for our community. We adjusted the utility rates here earlier a year ago, and we've begun major improvements to our water system and our sewer system. Over the course of the next 10 or 15 years, we'll be spending in the neighborhood $250 million on improvements to our water and sewer system. So those projects are ongoing, and they will start accelerating as the next couple of years arrive. And this is one of those, just once in a lifetime opportunities for our community. It was 1948, the last time a sitting president of the United States came to our community, Harry Truman, and I'm not sure he got off the train. And here on January 22nd, President Obama spent 5 hours in our city, and hearing from our law enforcement individuals that conversed and got to know well many of the Secret Service members that were participating. It's very unusual. In fact, this president hasn't spent that much time in the city, certainly on the tours in America since he's been in office. So that was a great opportunity. And I wanted to show this particular slide. This was on Meet the Press the following Sunday. So we were on national news on all the networks and across and even around the world. There was questions what his position was going to be on health care reform after the Massachusetts race. So there were some statements he made here in Elyria that received national attention. So it was indeed a special day for Elyria. You start out at Elyria Manufacturing, the great event that almost wasn't at Smitty's for lunch, and the town hall meeting at Lorraine County Community College. Finished with the tour of Riddell, where he received a special presidential football helmet, and I'm sure it'll be a special keepsake that he'll treasure always. And if that wasn't special enough for our community, a few days later, the State of the Union address for a worldwide audience, he mentioned 2 cities, Allentown, Pennsylvania, and Elyria, Ohio. He even pronounced our name right. I think we all know that, right? So that was, I received calls and Facebook messages from friends and classmates from all over the country that were commenting how proud they were to hear their hometown mentioned. And of course, heard that from daily people here in our community that were so proud to have our city mentioned by the President at the State of the Union address. Well, as we look to the year ahead, and I'll touch on this in a moment here, our sanitation department, we're going forward with an automated trash program, which I'll talk about. Every 10 years, according to our charter, it calls for the city to review the charter. We'll be going through that this coming year. 2 items that will probably get attention, and I'm sure there will be others, and that's the recall provision within our charter. There likely will be some recommendations to make adjustments to that. The voter approval of the income tax, we're limited based on when we can put items on the charter or on the ballot for tax measures. We're limited to just November of each year, so we may offer a change to that for the voters. I can't help myself, but the recall provision, one of the local, what's their local club here? It says the night at the races. Elyria Softball is having a fundraiser coming up, and they have the night at the races, and of course we bought a horse. And it was chosen by those in the office that the name of our horse is going to be, what is it called? I can't recall. So hopefully that'll be a winning horse. I didn't take that. That was the committee. I don't make all the choices. So that's in bad taste. I'm not responsible. Our fire department, that will likely be the source of conversation in the coming year as well. We have contract negotiations that will likely get considerable attention. A lot of the recommendations of the fire management study we'd like to reflect in the administrative code. It's a type of ordinance that the city passes that is an ongoing ordinance. We hope to make modifications to the administrative code to reflect that. U.S. Census, I don't know if Betty Halliburton's here in the room, but many of you know Betty from her working here in the community. But the U.S. Census is well underway, and it's important that we do everything we can to make sure everyone is counted in our community. Millions of dollars literally are at stake for our city. So anything that you can do, if the club's given any opportunities in the coming months to participate in any way, it'll be time well spent. Law enforcement, and this is a conversation I might get in trouble from my friends around the county here a little bit, but there may be an opportunity in the coming months and year or so that we can consolidate in some special way our dispatch facilities. We were very fortunate and fortunate to have the support from the county as far as dispatching our fire, and the next wave of opportunity appears to do that also for law enforcement. So hopefully that may come between County 911, Sheriff, City of Lorraine, and City of Elyria. There's considerable savings that could possibly be had by that consolidation. Elyria City Schools, again, I don't want to steal Mr. Rigda's thunder here, but this is going to be an important issue for our community. This is very important for our city as a whole. I know this is the state of the city about city activities, but our schools are a critical component of our success as a community as a whole. And the operating levy is very important to that overall community success. The Elyria plan, we'll be talking also about our resource capacity, building our resource capacity, which is a politically correct way, I guess, of saying we need more money. That came out of the 2015 plan. We made an attempt last year in issue 10. Was not successful. Hopefully, perhaps it laid the groundwork for a successful attempt here this coming year. That'll be a source of conversation, this coming year. And also, which will get a lot of attention, I'm sure, is our conversion in our sanitation program. We will be converting, as most of the industry is going, to the automated cart system. I'm sure many of you, where you live right now, you've made that transition. We will receive a $300,000 grant from Lorraine County Solid Waste District to support that effort. We anticipate legislation from City Council in the next month, approximately, to order the equipment. And it'll be a major improvement for the city. There'll be a lot of information that we'll need to explain. There'll be town hall type meetings and the block watch groups and others to giving people an opportunity to see the cards, to see the choices that they'll have between the different sizes, and to see how easily they work. So that'll be a source of conversation over the next 6 months or so. We'll, by the end of the year, to be able to begin that program. Now, as far as the 2015 priorities, these are a number of areas that we believe we have a reasonable opportunity to make significant progress this year with our existing revenue things available to us. One of them is developing a strong city internet presence as it relates to brand and promote a prosperous city image. So we hope to make large strides in that area. Improving the infrastructure, again, with our utility rates adjustments that we put in place a year ago, we're making great strides in our water, sewer, and sanitation departments. Enhanced business districts and economic development capacity. We're a bit limited in that. One area that we are embarking on is roundtable discussions with business individuals as well as site visits. We've been doing that over the years. We're going to accelerate that effort. Building the city's resource capacity. That will be a source of a great deal of discussion with City Council this year, whether we go on the ballot here in November or not, and what we might do, how much it might be, and how those funds may be used if we do so at all. Expand communication and accountability. We will be posting city council agendas and minutes and other materials on the city website. We do a great deal of that. We'll be accelerating that effort. Town hall meetings, we've been doing those. We'll continue that effort. Surveying the community, we'll do professional polling. We did that a year or so ago. We'll probably do that again here coming up. And then distributing regular newsletters. One of the things is within our utility billing, we've historically sent out a postcard that is part of the utility bill, where over the next couple of months we're converting that over to an envelope, in which case we will be able to insert other materials and newsletters, such things on a monthly basis to help advance communications within the community. Neighborhood safety and equality, there's a laundry list of things to address in that area. Probably the biggest area that we're able to address that we need to address is safety, and that's maintaining our police department. We've gone through great lengths to cut everywhere we can to preserve our police officers, and we've largely been able to do that, and it's an important component of neighborhood safety. Support family and individual development. I would say that similar to that, it's having to do with maintaining our park system. That's been a difficult challenge given the finances, but we've been able to keep that largely intact. Had to raise fees here and there and cut other expenses, but we've been able to largely maintain our parks programming. Income tax revenue, just to kind of put this in perspective, we showed most of this last year, of course, updated for 2009. As you can see, from 2003, $19 million. Then in 2004, it went up slightly, mostly because of the JED that was in place with Elyria Township. So while there was more revenue, it was probably not any real growth in terms of the business sector. The next year was 11.4% increase. That in 2005, we had the tax credit that was in place, and that accounted for most of that increase. That went away in 2006, so our decline was 1.6. So when you take away the tax credit, 2006 was a relatively good year as far as business activity. 2007 saw a decline of 4%. 2008, while the bottom dropped out the last couple of months or so of 2008, it was otherwise a very, pretty good year as far as what we've experienced in years. So with the bottom dropping out at the end of 2008, we still saw a slight increase over 2007. Of course, for 2009, that's when, havoc struck, and our decline was 11.6%. So, 12%, 11%, sounds like, a cheap person's tip, but 11% cuts for city government is dramatic, absolutely dramatic. It accounted for approximately $4 million in cuts, and they are very real and dramatic in our police service and our fire service, and touched everything else that we provide. One of the things to understand also is we had our biggest layoffs this last year in our city, but we've been making cuts for the last 10 years. We started with 530 full-time employees 10 years ago. We've been paring that down year after year, every year throughout the last 10, and we're down to 446, 16% of the workforce, which accounts for over $5 million in annual savings. Now, that's been necessary because while our revenues have been flat, our expenses go up. Cost of fuel, gasoline, utilities, just general expenses of the city have gone up, consistently. And with that flat revenue, we've had to make these cuts, and we're going to have to continue making these cuts unless things change. Now, when you listen to the financial shows and hear from the national economists, they're predicting that it's going to be in the neighborhood of 5 years before employment nationally goes back to the 2008 employment levels. And for the city of Elyria, cities in general, the bulk of our revenue is from income tax revenue. And while the economy seems to have rebounded, employment has not met up with that rebound. And employment is where we receive most of our revenue. And until the manufacturing, but in terms of the general employment sector coming back, we're not going to see any real revenue increases in the city. So we're going to have to continue to, cut expenses, of course, unless we were able to change something. Now, here's something that's important, because I hear every day, and of course this is our major responsibility, and that is we need more jobs in the city. And of course that we do, and that's our number one priority. It always has been. The entire 10 years we've been in office is everything we do, we look at what will this do to position the city of Elyria to help employment opportunities in our city. But here's a number of cities that are largely considered our kind of peer communities, depending on how you look at them. These are cities all approximately our size, more or less, and ranked from low to high, their unemployment rates. These are the latest numbers out of the Department of Job and Family Services for December. And Lakewood was the lowest at 7.6%. Lorraine County as a whole was 9.5%. Elyria 9.7%. The state of Ohio is 10.7%. So Elyria is a percent below the state unemployment rate, and then all those cities below that were, higher unemployment rates, Warren at 13.8%. So I point this out to say that for an industrial city, we're, as challenged as the economy may be, we're above the curve by and large as far as employment opportunities in our city. And when you look at how dependent upon we are with manufacturing, and we are kind of a bell community in terms of, as the national economy goes, it is very much reflected in the city of Elyria. And when the experts predict that it may be 4 or 5 years before the employment sector rebounds to 2008 numbers, it's not likely that the revenues are going to increase that rapidly. We certainly make every opportunity and every attempt we can to encourage companies to come into our city, but even more so to help those that are here presently, to help them be successful. But our employment rate, we're right there where most and are in fact better than many. Now, to look ahead, and again, this will be the source of conversation as far as, are we going to, as a community, and this is what we're going to be really wrestling with over the next year, are we going to continue making cuts, as revenues decline, or not able to keep up with expenses, or are we going to try to turn the tide and bring in more revenue into the city? Our income tax rate is 1.75%. I don't have the slide for that. But most of our peer cities are at 2%. Many are higher than 2% even. So the question will be, do we continue with the revenue we have, make cuts as we have, or do we increase revenue? I would say that, in the bigger picture, this is what I would suggest, looking at the 2015 program and the recommendations that came out of that. These are the areas that we need to advance. We need to increase hiring within our police department. We presently have the 85 officers. I think if we got to 100, we would be in good shape there. Firefighters, we're at 52. Again, the study shows that 56 would appropriately address that, so we're close there. Street improvements, we clearly need to do a better job of maintaining our streets, so we need additional funds there. In quotations there, I have the Jobs for Main Street Act. Congress, at least the House, passed in December the Jobs for Main Street Act, where they're basically doubling down on transportation dollars for stimulus funds. The Senate is likely to pass that very soon, where they're within our NOACA region, our 5-county region, there was about $42 million distributed, of which the city of Elyria got $3 million of that. They're going to, if this legislation goes through, that same amount of money will be made available in addition. The problem now is that the city of Elyria, we don't have engineered drawings in place to be able to take any of those funds. Those funds are available for us to have, but because we've operated in such narrow margins and without the opportunity to spend what usually is hundreds of thousands of dollars on engineered drawings, we don't have those on the shelf ready to go to be able to accept those funds. And what's critical about these funds is they want the money spent, rapidly. And there may be a small project or two that we might be able to engineer in a real short period of time. Doubtful. We're going to do our best to see if we can do that, but we are at a disadvantage because of such narrow margins that we operate on, that we do not have plans on the shelf. Downtown maintenance improvement. Downtowns are a core neighborhood of any community, and we need to make some investments in doing its improvements there. Cascade Park, similarly, that's historically been a great asset for our community, so Cascade Park is an area of investment. Midway is a sizable, very large business district for our community. It's in need of a makeover of sorts. There's great activity going on there. A lot of important business activities that are taking place there, but it needs some help as well. The college is doing fantastic, but one of the principles in urban revitalization nationally, and has been embraced by our governor, and that is recognition that you need to invest in meds and eds, medical institution and educational institutions. Those are the drivers of our national economy, and we need to do all we can to support those investments, not only those investments directly, but that which may evolve around them. And our college has a great deal of business activity on the campus and around it, so we need to do what little things we can do to help that. We're in the process of making improvements to Abbey Road to widen it and leading into the campus, so that's an important thing to do to help ease their access to the college. And we need to find ways to help with Midway Mall as well. Corridor and Business District redevelopment, those are roads like Taylor Street and Middle Avenue near the high school and other areas that we need to support. Property maintenance code and code enforcement, that's largely with housing. We need to accelerate those efforts. City information technology, there's so much, and I could do a whole program on information technology that we can offer. In fact, Ted Wallingford, your presenter next week, he could go on at length about the things that our city could be doing to advance communication and services within our city with information technology. So we need to improve that area. Our central maintenance facility is well antiquated and does not allow for us to maintain our equipment as well as it should be. Youth support is a key area. We've had considerable discussion within our administration over the last several years. We'd like to do more, much more. We're maintaining our park system, in its basic form, but we need to accelerate our efforts to support the schools and after-school activities and evenings and weekends. So those are some areas that we need to invest in. And outside of our city revenue, that all of the above relates to Elyria City Schools. We need to do all we can to support their operating levies as are coming up soon and whatever else may follow. So, while this is a sizable list here with, a reasonable request to raise our tax structure similar to other communities around us, we can tackle most of these areas. So while things may be challenged, the opportunities are there for us, and I'm excited to continue leading the city, and that kind of concludes the State of the City report. We may have a few minutes for questions, as you see, Mr. President, but thank you very much.